Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're here with another episode of the PWCC Weekly Review, where I go through the top 100 PWCC soccer card sales for the last week auction, talk through a lot of the listings with you guys, see where the market's going, and where we're heading. If you guys do enjoy it, make sure to leave a like. It helps the channel, helps me a ton, also helps, the content grow and reach more people, and thus I make more, and so it kind of, fuels the whole thing. Would appreciate it greatly, but with that said, let's go ahead and get on into it. So per usual, we'll start from the bottom and work our way up. This week, I thought this was pretty interesting. The lowest sales were 380, close to 400. Typically, it's in the 200 to 300 range, so that either means a lot of good cards or some high prices paid. We'll get on into it, though. I think that this is a lot more of a sort of collector auction lately than, I guess, an investor auction. Starting off, we have a 1924 Zamora. To be honest, I can't really talk too much about a lot of this, really old vintage type of stuff. I can reach back close to the 50s and stuff like that, but that is certainly before me. But that, again, is kind of what I'm talking about in terms of collector auctions. The fun part about soccer is you'll see this spans everywhere. Some of these other ones, very ultra-modern focused, very focused on 90s or 70s. I mean, soccer is all over the place, which in my opinion is a lot of fun. Next to that, we have a 2016 Mbappe going for close to 400. Seems about the going rate for those is a PSA 9 is close to 800 and has been for a bit. Then we have the Campio Messi in a 7 going for 384. This is the second of the three Messi's in the set, I would say, sort of the middle one, going for 400. Again, that's pretty much in line. I thought this was pretty low. A PSA, well, I guess not PSA, but SGC 1 Maradona crack going for 385. It does have some, discoloring on the top and some, loss of color there in different parts of the pink around the borders, but generally speaking, looks really good. And in terms of being able to see his face, a lot of these old Argentine releases typically can have like blurry faces, and so that's a really clean looking one. Above that, we have a Cristiano Ronaldo Leaf Auto. Just fun to keep in mind whenever you see these Ronaldo prices, because we'll see some Holland prices here soon that are much higher for Leaf stuff, so just something to think about. Next to that, we have a PSA 8 Campione of the white version from the set. Well, I guess it's a PSA 7 Campio, so that's really fun to see that, the 7 with the Campio of the green is almost the price of the 8 Campione, which in my opinion makes sense. I mean, the white ones of this grade a lot easier than this, so a 7 to an 8 probably makes sense, and also getting the rare version, I can see that. You can kind of tell that that's starting to separate from the pack, or at least, have some sort of differentiating factor. Then we have a PSA 8 Mundi Chromo. This is the Top Liga non-foil version going for 408. That did feel a little bit down. Looking at the sales history here, we have a PSA 9 recently, right there, that went for, what is it, 1320. So, a little bit of a dip. I guess it's not technically the same card, it's a 9 instead of an 8, and these are pretty condition sensitive, so maybe you could argue that, but just off comparison, PSA 7 went for 320 in the past, so feels kind of low, but also, these have been bouncing around, so it's hard to really gauge. In my opinion, I would rather go for the foil, but I do like this rookie. I like sort of the panel version of rookies. It just seems very classic to me. Mbappe sticker, you have the panel. Cruyff Verlag, you got the panel. I mean, the panels are, fairly common and something that I like. Most modern collectors would disagree and say that, having other people on there makes it worth less, and teach your own. This 1951 Kubala, I feel like we've seen one in each of the last 3 auctions now, so wouldn't incline me to believe that it is rare, but it is a lovely looking Kubala, and that's, a pretty significant player of the 50s and of the Barcelona era. So, you got a lot of collectability going into that if you are a vintage collector. Pop 1 of 6, just 1 graded higher. So like I was saying, I doubt it's getting rerun over and over. I'm guessing they're different ones, and these are just kind of starting to get graded. You can tell that Spanish issues from vintage are, sort of hitting PSA slabs now. Next to that, we have an Erling Haaland Leaf Auto, which is what I was sort of referencing earlier with Ronaldo autos. I mean, would you rather have a Ronaldo auto or an Erling Haaland auto? I know what I would choose. It seems pretty easy to me. Then we have a Neymar 2009 Abril goal in a PSA 6 going for 430. It feels a little light. I'm not too certain on the recent sales. Okay, well, we have a PSA 6 of the portrait version going for 516. In action going for 568, so yeah, a little bit of a dip there in the last month from 568 to 432. That could be, also based off where they sold on. I mean, maybe eBay gets more eyes. I don't know. This is sort of one of the things you have to do during the down market, is figure out where stuff's good and where it isn't. I guess to be fair, it did sell on PWCC a month ago as well for 660, and now it's 430, so that is a pretty significant dip. Generally speaking, with Brazilian issues, they have been coming out more and more, but this is one of the ones that hasn't been, flooding the market necessarily. but also Neymar hasn't really done much to, I guess, help his cause lately. World Cup obviously didn't go his way, and with PSG, unless you're really doing something in the Champions League, which they aren't at the moment, then not a lot going for you. So that is down a little bit. Next to that, we have sort of, the dichotomy of what's been going on. I don't know what the past comps have been, but to see a Neymar 2017 numbered of 20 PSA 10 camo select field level go for the same price as what is, one of the pretty desirable rookies sort of shows where we're at. We're pre-modern, not pre-modern, but in modern we have numbered cards sort of taking over a bit more. James Cards FC did a great video on that. Make sure to check it out if you haven't already. I mean, it is really, really good. It goes through all the Messi parallels and basically how many numbers there are and what year, and it's great. And so it sort of shows you, the same things that would be applicable to other players like a Neymar. So in this sort of scenario, I can understand where we're at and why a Neymar select field level is going for more than that. Above that, 1930 vintage Italian card. A lot of these coming out too. I'd say the most vintage I've been seeing lately is typically Spanish or Italian. That seems to be where a lot of it comes from. Obviously, great footballing heritage there, so it also makes sense. But yeah, not a whole lot I can offer on that. And with these, it's always going to be weird to try to, decipher the population. Realistically, if you want to know how rare or how unobtainable some of these are, you should probably go to the foreign eBays, the foreign websites that you're going to buy stuff from, and try to figure it out that way. Get some boots on the ground. Next to that, we have a Jude Bellingham Stadium Club Chrome Auto and a PSA 10. This is a rookie with a rookie card stamp. I want to take a look at this just because I really never do look at a lot of these younger autos and sort of see how they're doing, and I feel like that's a bit of a disservice. So 2020 Stadium Club going for $450 right there. Around there, you can kind of tell like a lot of the numbers are a good bit higher or around that same ballpark. I'd say something right here, like, again, I don't know exactly the intricacies of the Jude collector market, but if I could get a numbered out of 75 blue, even if it's in a PSA 9 for $100 less, I feel like I'd much rather do that. And I mean, there was a gold out of 50 in a PSA 10 going for $760 back here, so honestly feels like a pretty strong sale for that. Next to that, we have a massive lot of Giovanni Reina Topps releases. This is a card that I have a good amount of raw. I'm not going to buy a mass of them graded, but I've always thought that this card's very weird because it was like one of the first, Giovanni Reina releases when I got in the hobby. Now, there were other ones already out there, but in terms of, sort of the cards that were accessible to people, this was one of the first, and it's graded as a second-year card when a ton of cards that came out after that are graded as first-year cards. So I've always felt pretty hard done by owning a good amount of these early on and then having it be a second-year card, but lesson learned, one of the things you learn in the hobby early on is when you're buying a rookie, probably just wait until the cards are out and then, make your play. Next to that, we have finest Kylian Mbappe Phenoms out of 50 gold. I really like this segment of the market, just in general. I think that it can be fun and sort of affordable. Maybe not this card in particular, obviously $500 for an Mbappe, but I'm saying in terms of inserts and numbered inserts, I feel like that's a really fun part that I don't see a lot of people going for. And I've sort of taken my plunge recently into that. I probably will do more, and hopefully some of those show up in these auctions so we can talk about them a little bit. But I do think it's a fun play, for everyone that wants to have a unique card. I think it adds a little something too, and which one of these insert sets pops off? Really not many have. There are a few notable ones that, the flippers really draw to, but I'm talking more the collectors of the hobby, more the real fans of soccer, what they will draw to, and that's just something fun that you can think about. Up here we have a Color Blast Christian Pulisic. So usually I just brush by the USMNT stuff, but the Color Blast actually intrigued me because I don't own any. I think Color Blast is one of those things that I just was talking about where it's like, I see why people like it, but I think it's very overhyped. But if we go into the sales history here, I mean, this is a very bad sales history. So basically, you can tell that in 2021, which, sure, we were at the peaks of the market, but this card was going insane at 4,000, close to 4,100, and then, by the end of 2021, it was already down to 2,000, so it got cut in half. Then in the next year, it basically gets cut in half again, and then since then, in the next 3 months, it's cut in half again. So, like, this is one of the things where, what's the collector base of, Christian Pulisic Color Blast? In my opinion, it was mostly people that wanted to flip for the World Cup, right? Now, you can say for the USMNT, to be honest, a lot of them have gone down since the World Cup, generally speaking, because there was just a ton of supply push on the market. So with that, yes, there's going to be some drop off, but some have held up much better than others, is I guess the way I'll put it. This one, obviously, not in that ballpark at all. And this just comes if you look back at prices back in the day. I've done this with Kabooms. I looked back to what Kabooms were before the whole Kaboom thing was going on. Kabooms were basically not cared about, right? And I think that's the best way you should go about collecting these sort of insert or case hit cards, is collect the ones that no one cares about, because then if people care about them, you're in, you're great, you're golden, right? But you don't want to be chasing, because that's what can happen. 2010 Kevin De Bruyne rookie sticker PSA 9. This is actually the more rare of the two. So there's an in action and there's a portrait version. This is a portrait. When we look over at that, all right, PSA 9, recent PSA 9, actually just last month went for $13.20, and this one went for $4.90. Just crazy to think about. That's sort of the premium. You're seeing it right here. This is the in-action version. The in-action went for $400, while the headshot went for $1,300. So you can tell that person in the PWCC Weekly was paying a premium. I'm hoping that this isn't the same sticker, but I guess it's kind of hard to tell. I don't know if it's the same sticker that got reran or listed by the person that bought it. But you can tell when I scroll back here, I mean, there's basically none of these headshots. So I'm sure the person that bought that first one was like, man, I haven't seen one of these in ages. Let me get that. And then, unluckily enough, I guess right after that, there is another. I'm hoping that this isn't, I guess it's kind of recently graded, but it's not too recent, and it's pop 1 of 7, so there's probably nothing wrong with this. Makes you wonder, though. That's just kind of where we are with stickers, where if I see some big stickers come up one after another, although to be honest, Kevin De Bruyne, while it is a nice sticker, I don't know if that's necessarily worth faking a ton of. Next to that, Maradona 78 crack going for $500, and PSA 2, a little bit low, but seems about the price. I think I much rather would have had the SGC 1 of the Argentine kit, him in the stadium, going for like $380, something like that. You could save $100, get, in my opinion, the better one. I do like the cartoon, but I'd much prefer the regular picture. Next to that, we have a Panini Adrenaline Kylian Mbappe. I thought this would be a fun one to look up because, it's sort of one of the untalked about Mbappes. That sold for $500, as we saw recently, and before that, it went for about $700 a few weeks ago, so that's a pretty decent dip. But if we do look back, it's actually, kind of up. I mean, from that November sale in 2022, it went for $202, and now it's at $504, so I mean, that's kind of a huge gain, to be honest. And you can tell that they've been kind of bouncing around here. There was a PSA 9 back there going for $400, a PSA 10 going for $400, kind of all over the place in terms of comps, to be honest. But you can tell that it seems pretty healthy. While it is down from the last sale, it's also up from some of the others, which, is something you like to see if you are someone that owns them, I guess, or just someone that's looking for, a healthy, stable market. Going above that, we have an SGC 9 Mbappe going for $520. I mean, that actually feels kind of cheap. I know people don't like SGC, but the PSA 8 went for, it was close to $400 before, so I'd pay $100 more to get a grade higher in SGC slab. At least, that's me. I know some people are different. Obviously, PSA sort of has the hobby by hold, but again, I love this sticker. I think that, in my opinion, whenever people have this whole Mbappe rookie discussion, there's no discussion. It's the Panini foot. 100%. That's literally it. I know that, people don't like stickers and it's an ultra modern sticker, so it's too plentiful. I don't know what that means. You would think if someone only had one rookie in modern, that would be seen as like some sort of grail. Like, you're telling me there is a modern rookie that could be a GOAT that has one true rookie? And people just look at it like, actually 2017's a rookie. No, 2018's a rookie. Like, no, the 2016 sticker's a rookie. At least in my opinion. I own no Mbappe. I did own some of these in the past, and I mean, if they keep dropping lower, maybe I'll own another one in the future. Who knows? Nonetheless, early Holland auto, again, just give me a CR7 auto instead. I would much prefer that. Speaking of CR7 and a PSA 10 right next to that, going for $552. I actually will look this up. I didn't have it looked up, but I do want to give it a peek. Best offer, the last one went for $1750. One before that went for $1,900, and then this one goes for $550. This is one that, like, hey, if you're an eBay flipper, That could be some big money, because I'm guessing the people on eBay might not even have seen that PWCC weekly went off. Honestly, it's not something I really look towards, because I know that these 2006 stickers are pretty plentiful, but in a PSA 10, I mean, they're not all that easy. And the boxes for this are still, you know, I think they're like 300 or so. So, you know, to think that PSA 10 is only netting 550, really hard to grade too. I mean, the Ronaldo, whenever I opened this up, the Ronaldo I got was beat. It was ridiculously beat. You know, just, I guess the way that they make the packs and seal them, it had tons of indents all over it. And, you know, it was fresh out of the box. It wasn't on like a side of the box that got hit or anything. It just is that bad, right? And so to think a PSA 10 only goes for 550, I guess if we do go back though, there are some, you know, lower sales. Mostly the auctions, it seems, just go really low, and then the buy it nows go really high. Why someone wouldn't just wait it out for one of the auctions, I do not know. But yeah, back here you got 660, 820, so it's still down from there, but it's not as bad as it would look from right there. Just kind of depends if you're willing to be patient or not. Maradona PSA 3 going for 550. We actually looked this up last week, and that's, you know, about right on point with where it's been going lately, so that's a good sale for him. One of the, I think it is actually the most plentiful card in vintage in terms of pop report. Now there's going to be more out there that are probably more plentiful, but just in terms of what's been graded, one of the most graded in vintage, but I think that's also a sign that it is, like, you know, one of the stickers in vintage. BGS 9 Campione of the Messi, the white version, going for 600. Seems like a decent deal. I mean, personally, the PSA 8 we saw earlier went for, you know, 450 range. So I'd rather buy a BGS 9 and, you know, up at a couple hundred, but that's just me. This one, I think we saw sold last week as well, so this might be a rerun. Then this row was pretty interesting, just a row full of Holland Topps Chrome Sapphires. Personally, I prefer to have the Salzburg kit if I can, but 700 basically across the board on these. We can see what that stacks up to in comparison to late. And as you can tell, you know, not necessarily the best. I'll try to scooch in the edge of the graph here. There we go. Yeah, I mean, it sort of follows the Holland graph that we've been seeing, that I've seen on his foosball as well. You know, was really high at one point when people thought that these were pretty rare, and also Holland was on Dortmund ready to go to City, so that's like, you know, the time to get in theory. So everyone's all hyped up about him, and then he gets the move and his prices just go down, and then people, you know, don't really know what to expect. And then he does really good to start the year, and now he's sort of faded off, even though, you know, City's doing pretty well. But realistically, you know, for people to still be hyped and excited, you have to be doing something fun. And while he does score goals on City, you know, Holland-esque goals, you just don't see on City as much. They're just sort of more in the moment, in the right place at the right time type of goals, and that's not going to get people excited, especially when, you know, City's not running away with it. They're not, you know, engaged in a lot of huge games. Champions League hasn't quite started yet, so maybe this is just one of those like dips during a time where people just have little to be hyped about. You know, maybe you could see that change, but I think it's a fair price, at least compared to where we've been seeing lately. It's been floating between 500 and 1,000, so 750 seems about right in line. Then on the next row, we have a plethora of different sorts of releases. Here on the right, we have a Giggs rookie. This is a Bassett & Co. release, which is typically pretty easy to grade, but 10s are not just a plenty. Looking back at some of the sales, we actually haven't seen one sell in a very long time. As you can see, the last one sold for $370. This one goes for $690, so that's a pretty big boost. To be fair, you know, hadn't sold in almost a year, so when that type of thing happens, you know, there's probably a collector or two that's willing to pay more than the last comp, right? And then this is what happens. He does also have a Topps Stadium Club also. They're at $450, and as you can see, the prices before were a good bit higher, but the prices way back when were a good bit lower. And I think that this is a pretty good representation of soccer as a whole, right? In April of 2020, you know, you could get this really cheap. In June, it sort of bumps up. During the winter of 2020, it bumps up more, and then we hit the crazy peaks right up here, and then we come back down, you know, about half. And that seems to be a general trend for a lot of the cards, right? We took a big notch up, a big notch up, a big notch up, and then you take, you know, a big notch down. And I think that's pretty fair, and I think that's a good representation of what's going on here. Fun to see a nice little increase on that one. Spoiler, we'll get to Zlatan here in a second. 1902, again, don't know what it is, but one of the reasons I love soccer is because you can see all this in the same row, right? 2020, 1902, 1962, 1992. Yeah, I mean, this is what I love. Next to that, we have a 2020 Topps Tier 1 Bundesliga Jude Bellingham. I learned about the Florian Wirtz recently that we saw in one of these auctions, that the tier 1 for Florian Wirtz is like one of his only releases, so it's like really, you know, seen very highly. Jude, you know, not his only release by any means, so it's not seen super highly, but 720 for a PSA 10. It says pop 1 of 3. Again, with PWCC pops, you never really know what exactly it is, but above that we have a couple different Mbappes. So this is 720 and 750 for the PSA 9. That is a good bit down. Again, I do remember in the recent auction seeing these go for, you know, 800 to 900 range. So going for, you know, 700 to 800 range now is a good bit lower. This PSA 9 going for about 150 more than the BGS 9 of the same version that we just saw. And this was a really fun one. You know, obviously the hobby feels a certain way about sticker autos and non-game worn items and all that jazz, but if this was just a 1 of 1, you know, pure low, I feel like people would be willing to pay a pretty good number, and this is a 1 of 1 with a cool patch and a sticker auto, so maybe that entices someone, but I do feel like that's a really cool one. Above that we have a BGS 9. This is actually fun. This is the Campione version, the Catalan version, so as you can tell, doing a little bit higher than the PSA 9. So hey, BGS is ahead of PSA, only if you have the rare version of the card, I guess, but again, I'd rather be the buyer of the BGS than the PSA. If you're gonna get the same grade, I'd rather have the rare version. But again, that's how people see PSA and BGS at the moment. Next to that, we have a Zlatan going for 750 in total. This peaked at 6,300. It's come back down a good bit. It went as low as 1,400. So if you're looking at that price, right, the PSA 4 just sold for half of the low of this one. That would seem pretty high, because typically the way I see it is you almost cut a price in half for each grade. At least that's the way the market does it. I would think that according to these prices, a PSA 9 should sell for 700 and 900, and a PSA 4 did that, but you know, that's what you're gonna have when it's a rare sticker that people want. Even if it's, you know, lower grades, people are gonna pay up for it. This row, really fun row right here, I thought. I mean, on the right, you have the Mbappe Red Velocity, BGS 9.5. This is actually a Gem Plus. You have a 10 on the centering and then 9.5 and all the others, going for 780. I thought the contrast to PSA 10 over here for the orange going for, you know, more seems really strange to me. I know, again, we got the PSA versus BGS 9.5, but that's a BGS 9.5 Gem Plus. Like, it has a 10 for centering and 9.5 for everything else. So they're basically telling you, like, hey, this card is very nice, right? Centering's the thing everyone cares about. Centering's perfect. Everything else, great. And over here, they're just like, you know, looks like a good card. And so, you know, people are willing to pay more for the worst version. I think the Red Velocity was a steal. If you got the Red Velocity, you know, congratulations. Next to it, these two were really fun. This is Ronaldinho PSA 10 of the Crack 2003. Pop 1 or 2, I don't know if that's true. You know, maybe that plays into it. I would always check these PWCC pops on PSA whenever you're doing this. If you're bidding good numbers, you'll need to know. But it is a great looking card. I think this is one of my favorite cards from the, I guess, the pre-modern era in terms of design. Zidane has a cool one, and I mean, they are just, you know, beautiful. They pop so well. I mean, just in that picture alone, you can see how well they pop. Above that, we have an Antony Red out of 5 and a PSA 9 going for 840. You know, if you're a fan, it seems pretty attainable. I mean, nice rookie color match out of 5, PSA 9. You know, you would think it's all the things that you want for a pretty decent price, but it's just a matter of if you collect or prospect Antony. Beyond that, we have an Mbappe BGS 9.5 going for 840. That seems about right. The PSA 10s of this, again, this is a Gem Plus. This is, you know, 9.5s across the board, 10 centering, although, you know, borderless 10 centering, so it's a little bit easier, I would say, to get a 10 on that. But going for 840, PSA 10s of this have been a little over 1,000, so it seems about right in line again. This is down a lot, and this is one of those things that you just have to learn when it comes to pre-modern or soccer in general, is whenever there is a new rookie, there will be more, right? Rarely is there ever just 1 or 2, and then there's no more. There usually is more, and that's what we're going to talk about here. So when we look here, that PSA 8 just did 840. A few weeks back, a PSA 6 did 900. So you can get 2 higher grades for basically the same price it went for a month ago. Again, I don't know if this trend's going to continue where like 10s will come out and they'll be $800. Probably not. But, you know, PSA 7 in November did 2,000. So you can get a higher grade for less than half the price. And that's, again, sort of one of these things where once a new rookie comes out for a guy, don't FOMO into it. Please don't FOMO into it, because, you know, just wait to see what happens with the pop, wait to see what happens with releases. Typically, once things come out and do a high number, you know, the people that own them are like, hey, well, let's grade them and sell them. And so that's what you end up seeing here. SGC 5, Really high grade for this, as you can see. Pop 102, just one graded higher. This is one of the early attainable Puskas that the market could go after. Above that, we have another orange Kylian Mbappe. I guess this one is the French jersey from the Optic set rather than the PSG jerseys that we were seeing before, so that's why it does a premium. PSA 7 of the Neymar going for $870. Given where we saw the 6 action shot earlier, this seems about right in line. This is a fun Pirlo out of 10 flawless going for $900. So just a little bit more than the 1 of 1, and probably rightfully so. I mean, this is game use on card flawless compared to select 1 of 1, but both cards amazing for a Pirlo collector if you are one. Cristiano Ronaldo 2004. This is the Paxio sticker. There are other ones in the set, but yeah, really good price for that. I honestly don't follow this sticker a ton, but I know it's one of the more coveted of the Euro releases for Ronaldo. I actually believe it's 2003, not 2004. But PSA is kind of weird with their labeling at the moment, especially for soccer. They're all over the place. Sometimes they grade for season, sometimes they grade for year, and it doesn't make a lot of sense at times. Next to that, we have a PSA 7. This is Panini Calciatore. As far as I understand, first release for Pele under the Panini brand, so that's pretty fun. Looks pretty good too. I mean, in terms of aesthetics, I like the Brazil kit, I like the background, I like the colors, all very nice. Next to that, you have a Eusebio Blue Name Velita back PSA 5. This is not the most rare by any means. There are different backs. There's also a yellow name. The yellow name's more rare. In comparison, actually a good bit up from the last golden sale. The last golden sale was 720. That is 1,020. Now it does have the PWCC A, so maybe that plays a role. Some PSA 4s back here going for 750 range. Probably down a little bit, but also could be up compared to certain sales depending on what you're looking at. Really, one of the most, I guess, iconic. Everyone loves to use the word iconic, but whenever I think of vintage stickers, this is one of the few that come to mind. Above that, 1965 Panini Pele and a BGS vintage grading 7. I don't know why that does more than a PSA 7 of the year prior. Would love to know. It could have something to do with the back. It does say Velita back, while this does not, so maybe that plays a role. Most of the time with some of these vintage stickers, that is going to be what's the deciding factor, I guess, is what kind of back it has. That has a lot of determination in terms of the collectability of each release. Here we have a couple of Holland Color Blasts. I already sort of gave my take on Color Blasts in general for Pulisic. Holland obviously a better player, but I think the fad for Color Blasts and Kabooms in general is something I wouldn't want to be a part of. Then next to that, we have a red Camavinga, numbered out of 5. Color match. Again, this is like the Antony. If you're a big, believer in Eduardo Camavinga, this seems like a really good buy, just because PSA 10 typically is a huge premium. So if you're assuming, say, a PSA 9, right, this is like $300 to $400. I mean, I remember people paying a lot of money for, silly common Camavingas, and this is like one of the most rare. So it sort of shows you how far we've gone. But to me, seems really cool. But you got to be a Camavinga or a Madrid guy, I guess, to really be into that. Then we have a PSA 5 Deportivo Ronaldo. This recently topped the list in a PSA 8 at close to 10 to 11,000. So that's, a good percent off for being 3 grades lower. In comparison, yeah, there we go, 12,000 last week. Before that, PSA 5 went for 1,080. Before that, 1,000. Before that, 1,080. So it seems, to be up just a small percentage, which is very nice to see. Next to that, we have a Merlin Gold David Beckham going for 1,200. Seems like a very strong price to me. I mean, you don't see a ton of 10s for this, at least, I haven't on these auctions, but I do see 9s go for, a low amount, so the 10 gets a nice premium, seems deserved. I'm not huge on buying retired players in the Eminence set, but, I mean, when it comes to autos for a lot of the soccer greats on great cards, it's not very easy. So if you want to, by all means, I understand it. I'm not a big Baggio guy either, but 1,300, I'd probably rather own that over anything else in this row. And then each row just keeps getting more and more fun. This one has a PSA 10 Ronaldo going for 1,300. Looking at recent comps, basically, the full graph here. I'll move it over just a tad. Down a lot, down a lot. This is one of the cards that had an insane run, up to 18.2 thousand at the peak. It's now worth 1,200. So that's one of those, just a casual 95% dip, nothing to see here. I mean, Wow, that is just tough. I mean, even if you were buying before the dip, this was kind of like a lull, you know, that it's down big from there. Now, to be fair, again, this is one of the graphs that starts in 2020, which means people weren't really buying and selling this before 2020. So to still have a card that no one was really buying and selling a lot of before 2020 still be worth 1,300 is nice. But, you know, when people thought it was really low pop, it's his first World Cup card. I mean, during this time, people could not afford rookies. Like right now for this price range, you could actually, I bought recently a PSA 6 Ronaldo sticker for less than this. And, you know, that was unthinkable during these times that you could buy a PSA 6 sticker for a reasonable price. So once the market sort of resets on everything else, this has to follow, and it has, you know, more than followed, I would say. So very big dip. You know, if you're a buyer of this type of stuff, if you're someone that's been looking for it, hey, I think that now is a much more, you know, approachable time. Speaking of approaching and being a buyer, I would not approach or be a buyer of the CSG9 Messi. If you haven't seen, the most recent video I did was about how BGS was ruining fake soccer stickers, but CSG also tried to do their part with this sticker. They graded a bunch of fake Messis, and this one is a fake. So, you know, 1,300 theoretically down the drain for someone who buys that and tries to crack it and send it to PSA. Topps Chrome, Kylian Mbappe coming in from his rookie auto set. Numbered out of 5. People love red nowadays, so even the Mbappe autos from this set aren't as coveted now that he has other autos. So are the cards from that set going to be insanely coveted? I do not know. I'm not someone that's very into the buy a low numbered of Ultramodern just because it's low numbered. I still think they're going to print tons of low numbers. So low numbers isn't going to save you. You need a number in a set. Next to that, we have a PSA 8 Pele sticker from the 1970 World Cup. 1970 World Cup sticker set. In my opinion, one of the, you know, probably most iconic, most collectible sets that soccer has to offer. So many stars in that, first Panini World Cup. But like many other earlier sets, there's a ton of different variations for the back. So really that's how you distinguish yourself. Grade is nice. Having a high grade is great, but typically you're going to want, you know, as high of a grade as you can get of the more rare releases of these stickers. Judging by this price, I would say that, you know, there's nothing too special going on here in terms of rarity on the back. SGC 8 going for 1,500. Feels like an affordable price if you're someone like this is a Pele purchase I personally think would be a lot cooler than a lot of the other Peles. Maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I'm like a normie on the Pele market, but I would prefer a high grade 1970 sticker to a lot of the, you know, middle grade 1960s. But maybe that's just me. Then we have a Maradona PSA 1 going for 1,500 here. This is actually a pretty, you know, far drop here. The last sale was the last month for 2,600. This was 1,530. Just looking at it right there, it looks pretty nice. Like the colors are nice. You know, the edges are kind of nice. The back, I don't even think is too bad. But the picture itself is pretty blurry when you actually get in and sort of zoom in on the card itself. So as you can see, there's sort of the stain right there in the middle, and his eyes don't really look existent. It's just like a big black void. So maybe that plays a factor in terms of that price. I could see that as far as why that dropped a good bit. I will say though, this is one of the cards that hasn't really dropped a ton since the boom. I mean, at least until very recent, right? I mean, this is sort of the peak of the market in this range, right? And since then it actually went up, and now it's taken a pretty, you know, far step back in these last couple sales. But for a while there, it was holding and gaining very, very well. Now it is only a pop 11 and a PSA 1, and it's a pop that hasn't grown in, you know, at least 6 to 7 months. So I'm sure that's something that will play a factor. Pop 80 total, a decent amount of, I guess, med grades, you would say. 12 4s, 7 5s, 9 6s, 6 7s. I mean, there are some med grades certainly. But as you can see, I guess the lower grades haven't been submitted in bulk, right? I mean, when there's as many 4s as there are 1s, you would think there's a lot more 1s to come to market at some point. PSA 10 Topps Chrome Ronaldo going for $1,550. Seems like a pretty reasonable price. I'm not too clued in on the high-end Topps Chrome Ronaldos and Messis. Although, I mean, to be fair, I did see the Messi Orange and a 9.5 recently go for 4 to 5K. So if it's in that range, I could see the Ronaldo Green and a 10 being down here. You know, feels like it's encroaching on sort of a higher range, but it is what it is. This BGS 8.5 Thierry Henry, at least according to the Soccer Steady Discord and the man himself, he said that he did not think that this one is real. I'd believe it. I mean, any, Grail sticker in great grade, recently graded through BGS, just sets off sort of all the flags that you should have setting off in the hobby. And for that reason, that I'm sure that's why I went for 1620. This is one of the sad parts about the sticker market. I don't know what that Thierry Henry goes for. I guess we can look, because it's going to be a drastic drop off from where the last one sold for. See, that's why I hate Card Ladder. They don't even have Thierry Henry. In the Card Ladder history, we can see PSA 7 sold in December for 3,000, and PSA 5 sold for 1,000. So having a BGS 8.5, which is so much higher of a grade, selling for less or very, small margin more, is very crazy to see. But obviously, if they're just grading fakes, it makes sense. I mean, this is $1,600 more than anyone should be willing to pay for a sticker that was printed in the last year. 2018, Kylian Mbappe, just a load of stickers. You can price that out on your own, but it is what it is. Beyond that, Christian Pulisic, PSA 10, tie-dye out of 15, 10 at 10, auto going for 2K. This is a really cool one. I mean, at least for me, Christian Pulisic guy, I do like the select RPA. I know it's sticker auto, I know it's non-player worn, but honestly, you don't get a lot of, great rookies to choose from with the USMNT, right? There's not a ton of game worn on-card rookies that I get to choose from, so I do like this card. 2K, I'm probably not buying that, obviously, but I do like it a lot, and, I like the out of 90, which is much more affordable. You can get those raw for, like, I don't know, 150, 250, somewhere in there. That going for 2K is a very high price. It is Pulisic. I know everyone likes to hate on Pulisic, but Pulisic, at least from my perspective, best American player ever. I mean, obviously some things still need to play out, but I mean, in terms of ceiling, it's the highest we've ever seen, certainly. I mean, no one's ever won a Champions League playing a meaningful role for us. He's done that. He also had, like the goal in the World Cup for us. So in terms of how Pulisic's career could have played out, at least for the US and how we view him, I feel like it's been very good. I know that Europeans would look at it and say, like, he's a bench player on Chelsea, but look at Chelsea. I mean, they've been terrible without him. Not that they were, great with him, but they add in all these other guys who are supposed to be great, who are supposed to take the team to the next level. They haven't done anything. So, me personally, I like Pulisic just as much as I've ever liked him, if not more, but the market obviously, sort of has its ebbs and flows. Next to that, Erling Haaland, 2019 Finest in the Dortmund kit. I actually didn't even know this card existed. Like, I like the Finest stuff, and usually it's all in the Salzburg kit. I do not know the release format of this. I don't know if it was some sort of update later on once you get transferred and they put out these, but as you can tell, good price. I mean, PSA 10, 2.2K. It doesn't look like it's a refract or anything special. So that is very crazy to see. I guess if it's just, super short print, then that's why it would do that. But yeah, that is something I was not expecting to see today. A Pele auto going for 2.5K framed, Topps Allen and Ginter. Seems like a very high price, but earlier type of card with Pele auto, that is going to warrant a premium. Continuing the Pele theme, up here we have a higher lay PSA 5. Wanted to look and see how these have done recently. This went for 2.5K, as you can see. The last four went for 1.4K, and then before that we have a 2 going for 600. So, it seems sort of right in line. There aren't a lot of high grades of these that come up all too often. BVG 5 going for 1890 back in January. I'd much rather be the buyer of a SGC 5 with a PWCC eye appeal for, only $600 more. The BVG is always sort of seen as, a couple grades lower. So that seems like a very good price. Then we have a Neymar here. Again, this is, I guess, the third Neymar in this auction. So that's kind of showing that there are more of these getting auctioned. I don't know if it's newer grades. I mean, this would tend to think so given the cert number, but going for 2760, still a pretty nice premium over the lower grade we saw earlier. So not to say Neymar stuff still can't sell at a very high price. Next to that, we have a Diego Maradona SGC 8 going for 2760. We saw the PSA 3 earlier go for 5 to 600. This one obviously a good bit more. SGC Pop 1 of 1, none graded higher. PWCC A. PSA 8 recently bottomed at 3K and has been up from there to 3,700 and 4K. When we look back over here, going for 2760. Decent bit lower, especially with the PWCC eye appeal. You would think maybe a deal, but again, PSA is always going to get the premium over the SGC, but in my opinion, really, really good pickup there. SGC 3, I actually have never seen this, or at least, not until recently. I didn't know that it existed. I knew that that was the name of his rookie release, but I had never, done the research myself to actually look and see it. Some of the recent sales are only 3 in the Card Ladder history. This SGC 3 for 2760, and SGC 4 sold last last year for 5.1K, and then an SGC1 sold last year as well for 560. So seems about right in line, you know, in between the PSA 1, or I guess the SGC 1 and the SGC 4 price. So seems like a good pickup for whoever got that. I'm not going to really touch much on the Peles, at least Aquarellas. You know, it is what it is. I think they're one of the most abundant. They do look great, but I wouldn't pay $3,500 for that. Next to that, we have the Pedri Red Refractor in a PSA 10 going for $3,700. I don't know the Pedri market, but seems like if you're a Pedri guy, that would be one of the cards to have in terms of, you know, red on red, Stadium Club, people love it. PSA 10, it's basically got everything you could want. $3,700 is a pretty decent price when you look at what else you can get in this row, but honestly, you know, the Pele, I think that's not one of my favorite Peles. And this Messi also is, at least as far as the hobby's concerned, they say it's a fake Messi auto, the Eminence. Typically, what you want to look for is if it's more of a loop, like a small little loop, a small circle, or more of a coat hanger, which this is, more of a coat hanger. The coat hanger ones are, at least as far as the people say, they say that those are the bad ones. I'm not a big Messi auto guy, so I do not know, but I guess the evidence seems compelling to me. Next to that, we have an Erling Haaland auto. This is actually his rookie auto. Giovanni Reina has one in the same set. This is a Topps Transcendent release on card going for $4,300 in a PSA 9/10. Want to see how these have done recently. A PSA 10 did 9,000, a BGS 9 did 5,100. PSA 9 did 6,100, so it is down a little bit, but I guess it sort of follows the Holland market where it was down, kind of went up, and then kind of went back down. So we're seeing that play out in terms of his you know, high-end autos too. Next to that, we have a Bergman SGC 7. This is one again with the fakes have been coming out. I don't know if this was confirmed as fake, but I think people were saying that there was a little something to be weary about. I think the telltale sign on these Bergmans is typically the A. Up here, yeah, if it's like colored in, that seems to be what people are saying is kind of a sign of it being fake. Typically, the older ones have, you know, a space between the A there, kind of the same way this one does. And so there's typically a lot of the, you know, deciphering of fakes comes down to, does it look too good? And is the text on the back or the features on the back messed up? And this looks really, really good. And the features on the back seem messed up. So to me, that's just, you know, kind of hits both boxes there in terms of what to be weary of. And you know, again, not a great look on the soccer market if that is fake. Even the fact that we have to, you know, to have these questions, have this debate is always going to be a negative. So hopefully the companies can clear it up, and that's probably why PSA gets such a premium even to this day. Next to that, we have a PSA 7 of the Messi Mega Cracks going for $4,600, near about. In terms of the graph for that is actually up a good bit. You know, obviously sort of following the trajectory of Messi's World Cup win, you can see the market sort of regain with that. It was 3,000 at the bottom, popped all the way up to 5,100, and then this one was at, you know, 4,600, so down a little bit, but generally speaking still up. But, you know, depends what sort of graph you want to look at this in, and you can basically manipulate it any way you want. Next to that, PSA 10 of the Campione green version, going for $4,600, a little bit more. This is always sort of a fun question: is would you rather have the PSA 7 of the true rookie that everyone sort of chases, or the PSA 10 of one of the alternates? You know, you can have that internal debate in and of yourself. I'd love to hear an answer down below in the comment, but you know, for me, I'd probably rather just go with the 71 bits. No matter, I mean, almost no matter the grade, but you know, grade does play a factor. I don't agree with PSA 10 premiums. When you go back and look in like older days, you know, pre-2020, pre-Flipper, pre-Gary V telling everyone to buy 10s, buy the best of the best grade, pay up because you need to. You know, people used to value cards more and like just the card itself. And so I remember there's just so many times I look back at these older grades, right? And, you know, the premium from a 5, 10, 8 is like maybe double, but now the premium from a 5, 10, 8 is like 8 times, right? And I think I agree with the people that say, you know, I'd rather own the card, not the grade. Not to say, you know, condition doesn't matter, but I think it matters less than people make it out to be. BGS 9.5, numbered of 10, jersey number 10 of 10, gold, first year select. I mean, it seems like a really cool card to me. You know, select doesn't get the love that a lot of others do. I'm someone that I do like select. I personally like the field levels, and I also, you know, like tie-dyes. I think select has some fun stuff in there, but it isn't, you know, certainly the brand that a lot of others are. It's not Prism, it's not, you know, anything like that. But as you can tell, you know, a Messi gold always gets a good premium, so $5,100 for that. Very, very cool to see. Again, I'd still much rather have the 71 bits over that, but, you know, where we're at in this market, people like numbers a lot more because they know how much is out there, but I still feel comfortable with the 71 bits that there's not, you know, hordes of them sitting out there. And then getting into the top 4. So we're going to see this Pele. I feel like we already saw this Pele go in the last month. Seems around the same price. I remember it going for the 4 to 6K range, and that's right where we are again. So really cool Pele auto right next to Maradona, so you can kind of take your pick, you know. Would you rather have the Pele Flawless? Would you rather have the Maradona Eminence? You know, hard to tell. Personally, I'd probably take the Maradona Eminence just because I like the look of the card a lot more. And, you know, Maradona autos, at least to me, seem a little bit more collectible than a Pele auto. But Pele's always sort of going to have that GOAT crown, at least especially in the American mindset. I mean, if he has 3 World Cups, Maradona has 1, you know, Americans just look at that and say, well, you know, obviously Pele's a GOAT. Personally, I think it's much closer than would be led to believe, but I think both of those are amazing cards if you're the buyer. Then we have the Blue Refractor Mbappe going for 7,200 in a 10. Very big sale for that, which is, you know, considered by many to be a go-to rookie for Mbappe, considering it is numbered, you know, out of 10, jersey match, all that stuff. Here we have 7,200 on the most recent sale. The one before that was 6,700, so it's actually up a small bit. The ones before that, 34 or 3840 for the BGS 9.5. You got 8.2, 8.5, 9. So it is down a little bit in comparison to, I guess, sort of the World Cup hype of when he was doing good. But generally speaking, it's not down too much. So Mbappe had a small correction post World Cup, but generally speaking, still holding up very strong for the blue Topps Chrome. And then finally, we have a Giuseppe Meazza Lirati coming in at the you know, mighty fine price of 13.8K. This is one of the, I guess, you know, staple vintage cards we've been seeing the last year, where it did a really high price and then continued to do really high prices. So looking back here, for some reason we don't have the Meazza, but we will here in a second. So looking all the way back, basically right here was the first big sale that got very, you know, publicized, and that was a 31.8 thousand SGC1 that sold on Golden, and that really just sort of lit up a lot of the vintage market, especially, you know, Meazza. This is, I think, a big reason we're seeing a lot of Italian cards get great and come to market now, is this Meazza sort of blew up and then, you know, did some big sales after that. So you had the 1 go for 31,000, you had the 2 go for 66,000, and then after it, you know, it kind of corrects a little bit, 19.2, 18,000, and then 13.8. You know, I will say it did drop a good bit from the last 2 sales, but when you do look at the corners, I mean, that corner is eaten up. I mean, these are basically all rounded and all just pretty rough when you compare to these other ones. And just looking from the small pictures up on the screen, I mean, you don't see a ton of white. I mean, this one's pretty noticeable in comparison. I guess this one is a 1.5 that, you know, doesn't look massively better. This is an SGC1 that, you know, it doesn't look bad. Again, vintage is very much, you know, buy the card, not the grade, and that's one of the reasons I do love it, is people are very into the weeds and very into the cards. So that is fun to see. A nice vintage $14,000 sale topping the charts here, and a pretty good week, I would say, in general for sales. A lot of big cards, a lot of big prices, and generally speaking, the market's looking pretty good to me, at least. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, would appreciate it greatly. If there's anything you want to tell me, what you thought sold high or low, what you bought, would love to see it in a comment down below. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as we go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.